Colorado, crazy left state. When I lived there, it wasn't. It was a traditional state. Now it's crazy left. So the House, as we reported, has passed a law. I don't know whether the governor is going to sign it or the Senate is going to pass it, but the law is outrageous. Here it is. Colorado taxpayers must fund abortions. That goes against the Hyde Amendment for the United States, which says you can't force Americans to pay for abortions. So the state law goes right against the federal law, and of course, federal law trumps state law. Second one, the law prohibits cooperation with out-of-state investigations on transgender procedures. This is saying we're not going to obey Donald Trump's law on transgendered men competing with women. That's what this is. And you saw what happened in Maine. The governor said, all right, go ahead. Trump just cut off all money from Maine. All right, Maine's hurt. So Colorado did. We're not going to obey this law from Trump. Okay? Third one, gender-affirming care must be provided by all insurance companies in Colorado. Gender-affirming care means hormone therapy, surgical procedures for children without parental permission. This is insane, this law. All right? And finally, schools are to use students' preferred names rather than their born names. Joining us now from Winona, Minnesota, is the bishop out there of the diocese, Robert Barron. You may know him because he had a very successful social media operation called Word on Fire, okay, which is worth checking out even if you're not Catholic. So is the church in America going to get involved with this in Colorado?
Well, it might. We've been involved in similar struggles in different states. You look at my home state here in Minnesota, we're a sanctuary state, which means that you can take a kid from his parents in a state other than Minnesota, bring him here, and despite the parents' objections, they can do all this gender affirming business. We've been opposing it. There have been similar things. I was out in California as an auxiliary bishop, and we were fighting these battles. It's a real ideological struggle because, I mean, the church stands athwart this very modern sense of everything depends upon freedom. You know, we just get rid of any objective normativity. We say it's all a matter of personal free choice. Even a child choosing its gender, I mean, it's beyond absurd, but it's a deeper moral problem about human nature and this weird primacy we've given to freedom of choice. And the church, I think, is the strongest, most articulate organization standing against this business.
But you've got to organize and do something formal so the American people know that there is opposition to what Colorado is doing. And I have not seen that, Bishop, so far.
Yeah, I mean, in some of the states, the bishops' conferences get together. We'll have our meeting in June, and sometimes these issues come up and we try to find an organized, response. But usually it takes place at the state level, the state conference level, is where the bishops tend to engage these things. We just met as Minnesota bishops with the Governor Walz, and with the top leadership in Minnesota. We laid out all the concerns that we have about these various things. So I think that's really where the battle usually is joined, at the state conference level.
Okay, but that's all well and good. But the mobilization of the American people, I think most Americans would find this law barbaric in Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay, 2-1. If you polled it, 2-1, they go, you can't allow children to not tell their parents they're going to have a surgery to change their gender. That's just off the chart. But there doesn't seem to be any logical or apparent opposition to this. Now, when you're in a situation where the Colorado law basically is saying, we don't care about the Hyde Amendment. The Hyde Amendment was passed because the United States government, according to the Constitution, can't force somebody of conscience, a Catholic, to fund something that's a sin in the Catholic religion. That's as simple as that. Right. All right? You can't force, it's a freedom of religion issue.
Right.
You can't take
We've been
money.
opposing that stuff for years. Right. Now, we've been very articulate and clear, I think, in our opposition to this stuff for years, trying to carve out these conscience protection clauses. And as I say, I fought this now in 3 different states as a priest and as a bishop, and we raised it a lot at the national level. I'm on the Bishops' Committee for Religious Liberty, and that's how we name this. It's precisely a religious, liberty, free exercise issue.
Well, I don't believe that right now in the USA, and I could be wrong, but I follow these kinds of stories very closely, that it's an organized opposition. You say state by state, okay, but Trump is the guy that's knocking the DEI out, that's knocking the woke out, it's telling the states you can't do transgendered men competing against women in sports. It's a secular thing. Trump is doing it. And he's doing it for political reasons because the MAGA people want that. But there doesn't seem to be a religious alliance with Trump there.
Well, I'm chair of the Bishops' Committee on Laity, Youth, and Family Life, and I've issued a couple of statements supporting those moves of Trump, especially in the gender area, especially in men and women's sports and all that. I came out against him in terms of in vitro fertilization. So I spoke as chair of that committee. See, in the way the church is organized, power is concentrated really in the individual bishop and maybe in the state conference. At the national level, sometimes we don't approach the questions at that level. It's more the individual bishop in his diocese or the state conference. Also, I try to do it through preaching. So I use the means I have of communication to talk about these things. I've been battling woke-ism for years. I've been speaking out against it like crazy, and I have a lot of enemies because of it. But I've chosen to use this means of social communication I've got to.
What's your objection to woke? What's your objection to it?
It's fundamentally unjust. It's a fundamentally racist point of view. It's grounded in a European postmodern philosophy that's repugnant to Catholic social teaching, which is not an antagonistic social theory, but one based upon cooperation. I'm a Martin Luther King man, right? We're judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. And this return to a very racialized understanding and a very antagonistic understanding of society, I think all of that is repugnant to Catholic social teaching. So I've been against it for years.
Okay. So we're in Holy Week now, and the surveys say that church going, not only for Catholics, but for everybody, Protestants, Jews, Muslims, the whole across the board, is on the decline, vast decline. And the elevation of atheism and people who don't care, agnostics, is on the rise. Mm-hmm. Is there one thing that you could point to that has shifted us from a traditional society to a sexual society?
Well, of course, we've adopted largely this kind of, I call it culture of self-invention. So instead of looking at objective normativity and objective value, we just say it's a matter of my choice to create reality. And so the great opponent of that is belief in God. If you believe in God, you believe in a supreme objective value, and then arranged hierarchically under that are the other objective values. You get rid of God, you get rid of that whole framework, and all you're left with then is the freedom to invent reality. That's the ideology we're up against. That's another face of wokeism, by the way. But that's the struggle, you know. Now, I would contest a bit. There are certainly indicators over the past 30 years of this great, decline. In more recent years, though, there have been some more encouraging signs of revival in religious belief, especially among young people and especially young men. Just recently, I saw a study in both France and England. Numbers have gone up rather dramatically in terms of those joining the church. We still have a massive problem, and I've been tracing that for the past many years. The disaffiliation from the churches has been proceeding apace, but there are some hopeful signs, I'd say, in recent years.
All right. A lot of it is the media portraying religious people as fanatics and, secular media dominates in America and in Europe as well. That, if you're going to church, there's something wrong with you, and, the atheists get all the attention. All right, Bishop, we really appreciate your point of view. Word on Fire, how can people get that? Why don't you tell us how we can
Just go wordonfire.org, and you can find all kinds of resources there, sermons and podcasts and articles and so on.
All right, and we appreciate your work, and hope we can talk again soon. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on X. Look for @Bill O'Reilly.